Now, the United Nations has warned that unless low and middle income countries increase the amount of money they spend on tackling AIDS, recent gains that have been made in the fight against the disease will be lost.
Tomorrow marks World AIDS Day, and to raise awareness, landmark Australian buildings will be bathed in red both today and tomorrow night. James Chau is a UNAIDS Goodwill ambassador. He's also an anchor with Chinese Central Television, and he joins us now from the Sydney Opera House. James Chau, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
As we move into World AIDS Day, and based on that funding pressure we just referred to, do you fear a bit of complacency is creeping in around the world in the battle against HIV/AIDS?
I think sometimes when we talk about AIDS, we look at the 1980s, we saw it as the emergency. In the 1990s, it was the beginning of political leadership. In the 2000s, people seem to think that it's all been solved. So yes, I think there has been complacency. We look at the Global Fund and donor countries who have made significant contributions over the years. So of course, there is a concern that with this cancelled round that countries will be slower and it will hamper their efforts in being able to save and protect lives. But of course, the reality stays the same. We still need to save lives. We still need to protect them. So UNAIDS still has its strategic framework. There is a transitional mechanism for the Global Fund in the meantime. And in particular, we look at innovative mechanisms like a financial transaction tax, and particularly for Australia with an expanding overseas development assistance program and with a relatively strong economy. We look to countries such as yours when we move ahead.
But of course, you do need more money from more powerful overseas countries like America, which, as you know, James, is mired in something close to a recession. We all know how badly Europe is. Can you understand some of the budgetary pressures on these governments that have previously been free and committing money to the HIV/AIDS campaign?
Well, obviously, as you just said there, the financial situation in America, in Europe, is going to remain like this, with or without AIDS. One thing, of course, is political leadership, which is really important. You have that in Australia. We're going to see the Washington International AIDS Conference in July next year. But I think it's also about streamlining and being really efficient with what we do have and really squeezing the most we do out of our existing resources. I think we have to work smarter in order to be better in this fourth decade of AIDS. And one way we're trying to do that is to put young people at the very front lines. We have something called a prevention revolution, which recognizes that youth are at the front lines as one of the highest risk groups. And we have something called Crowd Out AIDS. So it's www.crowdoutaids.org. And it's the first time ever that the UN is crowdsourcing opinions and making sure that young people are included in designing the next stage and the next policies which will be passed around to all. I think that is really vital, of course, to empower youth, not just to say it, but to give them the tools and the platform to do just that with a very strong body like the United Nations right behind it.
A lot of health professionals have dedicated most, if not all, their careers to battling this disease. In 2011, though, how close are we to finding a cure for AIDS?
Well, I think that you would have to ask the scientists and the researchers that question. But as I said, in the meantime, we have been trying to find a cure or a vaccine for 30 years now. It's exactly 30 years since the 5 cases of HIV were identified in San Francisco and in New York City back in June 1981. The scientists are going to continue what we're going to do. The political leadership needs to continue. And I think the vital part now, which is different to 30 years ago, we know about HIV, we know how it's transmitted, we know how to protect ourselves. Using a condom still is incredibly important. Being aware of your status and acting your status is still very important. But we have new and emerging threats. For example, women of reproductive age today, any part of the world, are more likely to die from AIDS-related illness. And anything else more than breast cancer, more than heart disease, I think is shocking that 30 years on we're still talking about this. And remember, we're not just talking about women, we're talking about our mothers, we're talking about our sisters, we're talking about our daughters and our friends, of course.
What's the extent of HIV/AIDS in your country, China?
Well, the estimated figure is around 740,000 HIV-positive people. AIDS, in a way, came later there than it has in other traditional Western economies. So we've had the benefit of hindsight to learn from experiences, and particularly Australia. Individuals like Michael Kirby have been coming over to China over a number of years, showing us about treatment for injecting drug users, the benefits of clean needle exchange, especially methadone treatment therapy. We now have methadone treatment clinics in China since 2006 to 2011, from 0 to 700, and it's due to the inspiration of people like Michael Kirby, Australia, And the implementation, of course, from the Chinese Ministry of Health, our president and our premier have been very, very active on this in the last couple of years. So we've seen a real turnaround. And of course, I think in China, still the main concern, as it is in many countries, is stigma and discrimination. It's not unique to China, but of course, the problem still exists over there. We have seen a scale up in mother-to-child health programs. So we do have some of the similar trends that we see in other countries, but we do have the benefit of what's gone before to learn from that.
James Chau, UNAIDS Goodwill Ambassador, thank you very much for your time this morning and best of luck.
Thank you, Michael.